Good morning, Kampala. It's a chilly morning, a very good weather out there, if you ask me. I like this kind of weather for Kampala this morning. My name is Charles Odongtho, and I am sitting in or standing in for Oskar Semweya Musoke, who is the substantive moderator of this Capital Gang. And yes, this is the Capital Gang, 91.3 on Capital FM, and we are going to be looking at a number of topics, if time permits. But the major one that we will be discussing with the ABLE team in the room here is the lifestyle audits. That's the lifestyle audits of civil servants or public servants. The Honorable Betty Olive Namisango Kamia is in the house, and she will be telling us more about what her intentions are. Is she intending to arrest all of us? I am from the private sector, but currently I speak for the office of the Prime Minister, and so I am within the realm of those persons that Honorable Olive is looking after or is going after with the lifestyle audits. And we will be talking about what will make it effective. Can it be effective? We will want to learn lessons where, in which jurisdiction has it worked? Can it work in Uganda? If you have questions, use the WhatsApp platform to share with us the questions. I will get time to read them. The number that you can share with us your questions on is 0752 345 913. I will repeat that number, 0752 345 913. 0752 345 913. But let me introduce now the guests more formally. Honorable Betty Kamia, Inspector General of Government, the IGG as it is called. You're most welcome back to the show. By the way, I grew up listening to you on this gang, and so you are not a stranger to it, but you can say hello to the people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odongtho, for receiving me so graciously. And if you grew up listening to me, the listeners now know the age range in which I fall, but I am certainly a gangster emeritus, and I'm happy to be back on the gang. Good.
Next to her, on her left, is my good friend and brother Benjamin Katana. I call him Counsel. He is indeed, but he does other things with the politics of this country. He speaks, defends, advocates for the National Unity Platform, NOPE as it is called. And Benjamin, you are most welcome. Benjamin is the National Treasurer of the National Unity Platform. You're most welcome, Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good morning to all of you, our listeners, and the panelists that I've met here. It's a pleasure joining this discussion today.
Thank you very much. It's good to have you on this show. And finally, for now, we may be joined by other guests, but for now, we have Honorable Dick Kateshumbwa. Dick Kateshumbwa is the Shema Municipality MP, and he doesn't need too much introduction. He has been in these things, and he's still going strong in it. Dick, you're most welcome.
My name is Dixon.
Oh.
The other one, no.
No offense meant. I just wanted to make you look younger.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to the listeners. And just a good morning to our colleague, Honorable Abdu Katuntu, who is a regular gangster, whom we pass on the condolences for the loss of the brother.
He lost a brother in an accident.
And I'm sure that he will not be with us. But on behalf of the gangsters, really to send condolences to him and the family.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dixon, for saying that. And Honorable Katuntu, if you're listening to the to your product here, just know that our sympathies go out to you, to your family, and to the people of Busoga for losing your brother, and may he rest in peace. Yes, let's start with Honorable Betty. Just first summarize for us what you want to do exactly with the lifestyle audit. It has been a question since last year when you, I think last year or 2022.
21, my first statement.
Your first statement, and it kicked off some interesting responses, including from none other than the Fountain of Honor, who, when you did that activity on, I think our National Anti-Corruption Day and International Anti-Corruption Day, and the President was the chief guest. And he said something to the effect that, you need to go slow, if I can try to paraphrase what he said. You need to go slow on this, be careful, and all that kind of thing. And the public became a little suspicious, saying, will the president support this? What do you want to do exactly, Honorable Betty?
Thank you once again, Odontho. And Honorable Katuntu, I'm very sorry for the loss of your brother. I'm just learning about it. And as we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi wa raji'un. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen.
I need to give this lifestyle audit a background.
Yeah.
And the background, basically, the reason we want to push it is that while, of course, lifestyle audit is an investigative tool, it's one of the investigative methods to see how people are acquiring their wealth, or how they are progressing along the way as they work and grow. But in Uganda, there is corruption. There's no question about that. I think there's general consensus that there's a lot of corruption in Uganda. And the laws require that when someone is accused of corruption, one of the things that may happen is to take them to court, charge them before the courts of law, and there adduce evidence beyond reasonable doubt that before they can be convicted. And that is where we get a lot of problems, because a lot of people who acquire property or wealth illicitly, it is difficult to get evidence that they did, because by nature corruption is an agreement between willing parties, the giver and the taker. And sometimes, even if it is not about giving and taking alone, sometimes it is between syndicated organization, people who have sat down and agreed on how to do it, sometimes even within the ambits of the law, but really, at the end of the day, they are taking away public funds from public activity into their own personal activity. But many times they don't leave footprints behind to catch them. So people get away with it. They become wealthy. They acquire wealth, assets. Sometimes they keep them here in Uganda. A lot of times they even siphon them abroad, but there's absolutely no evidence to catch them. So the lifestyle audit monitors people's lifestyle over a period of time. And that is why Parliament, in their wisdom, passed the Leadership Code Act. And in the Leadership Code Act, once you get a job in government, you declare your wealth. Certain category of leaders, like politicians who are elected and others that are appointed, every 2 years, you are required by law to declare your wealth to the Inspector General of Government. And the other public servants, civil servants, they are required to declare their wealth every 5 years. So the lifestyle audit, in a way, is an operationalization, is giving effect to the Leadership Code Act that requires you to declare your wealth, so that every regular period we know how you are moving. The country knows how you are acquiring your wealth and whether the wealth you are acquiring is commensurate with your known sources of income. So there is no big controversy about the lifestyle audit. Really, it's giving effect to the Leadership Code Act that requires you to declare your wealth. Okay. But that being said, yes. To answer your question directly, how is it going to work?
Yeah.
And it is going to work directly through that provision of the Constitution, Chapter 14 of the Constitution and the Inspectorate of Government Act.
Okay, a follow-up question. Who are going to fall within the catchment area, so to speak, of the audit?
The entire public service,
especially to be effective, because I like the words, the coinage of this topic today, how effective it will be. And just before we came on the show, Council Benjamin was joking that if you want it to be effective, then expand it to even include the private sector players, business people, because they perhaps may be what did you call it? The giver and the taker. Perhaps they're the takers. Without them, will there be effect?
That is true. But to answer your question, broadly, everybody who earns a salary from government is in the catchment area. I'm telling you, I know of an office attendant who has been or was an office attendant for about 20 years. And when he was given a promotion, he refused. He says, no, me, I'm comfortable with my job. And the main thing about his job was hiding files and discovering them on motivation. Wow. So the office attendant will hide a file. Mm-hmm. And you look for the file, whether it's in the judiciary or wherever. And if you want your file to be found so that your business can be executed, the office attendants will magically find it. Mm-hmm. But you have to motivate them.
Wow.
And if he handles about 10 files a day and you motivate them with 100,000, that's his million every day. Mm-hmm. And you want to promote this office attendant to a supervisor who gets 500,000 per month? No. So the catchment area, and according to the law, all those people who get a salary from government are required to declare their wealth so that they can be monitored. But of course, and the public service at the last count was about 380,000 people at the last count.
Yeah.
So all those people are in the catchment area. But of course, you know, they retire, they are fired, they're interdicted, they leave, others come in. So it continues changing. But more importantly, I think the ones that would be in the glare of the public would be the people that are in decision-making areas and therefore have access to public funds, to decisions that affect the effectiveness of public funds. And those would be like accounting officers, like senior people in public institutions, and other people who have direct access to procurement officers. You know, procurement officers also have a very big role. And it is estimated that 60% of government funds are expended through procurement services. So people who are in procurement and people who are in finance and accounting officers and other people who make decisions would be of particular interest. But the catchment area is the entire public service.
Good. Let me swing back to straight to Council Benjamin. You have heard the context that you have listened to the context that Honorable Betty Kamya has described, and especially on the need for effectiveness, the catchment area, and the plans by her office and other agencies, sister agencies, to fight corruption. Are you convinced that this is a good thing, or at least are you Are you now getting it clearer that this is something that they should push for and that it has some great chance of working?
The starting point is that corruption is a very big threat to national development, and that if there is any reason that explains the state of poor service delivery in our country, is corruption. And therefore, any effort towards tackling that big problem that is standing in the way of our development, in the way of service delivery, that effort should be supported and applauded. And I want to believe that it is coming from a point of good faith and intention to tackle the problem. Of course, there are challenges in that regard, but that doesn't mean that we should not appreciate, even because you see, any effort starts with an idea and the thought that this is what we should do. There are many challenges in that journey, and I think one of them is the political will in dealing, because you see, the Inspectorate of Government has a mandate, which mandate stops somewhere, and then the other actors will take it up from there. So the IG may collect all the information that is necessary, but along the way there are other actors who may, and you see, corruption is a very technical evil in our country, and the IGG in her remarks talked about syndication.
Yeah.
That you will find there is a systematic way of indulging in such practices. That you have people in procurement, you have people in supplies, you have people in the intelligence agencies, you have people in audit that do audit of government agencies. You have people in committees of parliament, you have people in the judiciary, you have people in the media, being part of a bigger criminal network that is aiding corruption in the country. And so, the challenge is that when this very good idea is likely to be turned into another avenue of extortion. That if a person, as it is, because there are very many good initiatives under our legal framework, where you find that money released to a government agency is subjected to an audit. But the money is stolen by the accountants and other people in a government agency, and the auditor who is supposed now to point out where the leakage is also part of the theft. So we are likely to have another avenue of extortion, that now even people who are stealing 10 million will have to steal 20, because they have to facilitate the one who is doing the lifestyle audit to make sure that they are not, that the audit turns out favorably in their favor. So that syndication has been aided by, among other things, the lack of political will to fight corruption. And I remember the Honorable IGG when she made the declaration about the initiative of lifestyle audit. Among the people that asked her to cut the speed was the head of state, who is the president. And I also saw media reports in which he made now specific guidance that members of the armed forces should be exempted from that they should be left to do their work. I don't know if the work extends to indulging in corruption practices.
But I thought he made a rejoinder and said that in the army, in the military, we have our ways of dealing with this kind of vices.
Yeah, but you see, I wouldn't want to, I'll just use that as an example. I wouldn't want to go into, because you see, if you are going to talk about some of the headquarters of practices of corruption related to supplies, the army is one of the biggest headquarters of such practices, and those internal mechanisms of the army have been there and they have not addressed that. So I think that does not really provide an answer. But I was still making the point of lack of political will. That, for example, just a few months ago, we had a scandal that the public discussed exhaustively involving theft of iron sheets that were meant for the people of Karamoja. When there were cabinet reshuffles, one of the people, I think actually the biggest culprit, who took iron sheets and roofed one of the cattle sheds on his farm, was retained as a minister. And so that gives an indication that if you do not address the bigger question of the political will, because that one is key. Some time back, the former IGG made mention that most of the people that are involved in these scandals normally hide behind the president. And his statements and the conduct of retaining someone like the Honorable Gorobi on cabinet vindicate the former IGG. And so that political will is very important. But associated with that is the politicization or the politicking around fighting corruption. And so that you find, if Katana is implicated, that the people of Oshenya up in arms, they are saying, this is our son. Why do you touch him? Even when there is clear evidence that indeed this person has engaged in practice that is illegal and criminal. The other aspect related to that is that, and I think this is a very big task to all of us, of course the Honorable IGG being an office bearer has a bigger responsibility to rally the country, because I think she mentioned that we have consensus that corruption is a bad problem, but I think as a country we lack national consensus on fighting corruption. We only talk about it casually and leave it at that. So you find when there is someone being investigated, if this person is from the opposition, the people in opposition will be saying this person is being witch-hunted. If it is the person from the NRM, even the person in NRM who is not a beneficiary of this person's corruption will be up in arms defending the culprit. So it takes me to another aspect that we discussed here earlier, that our people, the citizens of Uganda, do not seem to appreciate the effect of corruption on their quality of life generally. They don't see it as their problem. They look at it as a problem of the elite being discussed here on Capital Gang and other talk shows. They cannot, many times they don't seem to relate the challenges they have in as far as service delivery is concerned to corruption. Every day you see people complaining on the socials about the poor road network. They are complaining about lack of medicine and expensive treatment. But when it comes, because how do we measure how these people relate this to their poor service delivery? When it comes to polls, they have no problem with the person who has, well, sometimes convicts are not allowed to contest under the law, but people that have been adversely mentioned in corruption scandals many times score highly, and even during campaigns it doesn't become an issue. When you go to campaign, it's not a campaign issue. And so I think we have a very big task to mobilize the country, that every person understands the negative effects associated with this evil called corruption, so that we are all up in arms. And Madam IGG, I think for us to be able to rally the country must also see that there is goodwill and that there is firmness in dealing with this problem. Okay. Recently, the country on social media was discussing about wastage of government public resources in parliament and everywhere else. So we would want to see you coming out and acting firmly, so that we have. I always see adverts that report the corrupt, but when we report them, what happens? That's what will give us confidence that we are on the same page, regardless of where we are, whether I'm a farmer, whether I'm a street sweeper, whether I'm a lawyer, whether I'm a journalist. whether you are IGG, whether another one is a minister, whether another one is an opposition politician, that we're on the same mission to help the country get rid of corruption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Council Benjamin. I just want us to take a very fast break, and then when we come back, I will be bringing in Honorable Kateshumbwa.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM. The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
We are back on air, and this is the Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM, and we are on the Capital Gang discussing the lifestyle audits being introduced by the IGG. We want to see how effective it will be, and in the studio we have Honorable Betty Olive Kamia, we have who is the IGG, we have Honorable Dick Kateshumbwa, Shema Municipality MP, we have Council Benjamin Katana, National Treasurer of the National Unity Platform. We are enjoying the gang with Star Cafe, Star Cafe coffee, and thanks for that. Before we went into the break, Honorable Dixon, you had your colleagues on the show taking a look. Honorable Betty providing the context from which we are coming, and then Benjamin Katana taking it on and talking about the lack of political will, the good faith, and the fears of extortion being promoted by this. In other words, painting suspicions that maybe this may not work as it is intended. Your own take, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning,
Africa and beyond.
First of all,
book now on our mobile
I think that we
or
need
our website www.
We need to commend this approach, because for once it will deal with facts from fiction. I want to tell you that a town clerk, a divisional town clerk, or a town agent who earns between 300,000, 350 in my municipality. At one point, we established that some of them would commute every day from Barara town to come and work. So if you commute from Barara, you are a town agent in a municipality like in Shema. Every day from Barara, you are coming for 30 days, 25 days in a week, in a month. How is it possible that that the salary you have actually affords you even to drive? Okay? We ask those questions. The IGG has quoted the Leadership Code Act. Since I started working in 2005, annually, I know that we were submitting the declaration. And even now as political players, we submit. But the question that we always ask ourselves is, what happens when I declare that I own a square mile of land, that I own a fleet of vehicles? And I think what she's trying to do is trying to address that, because you actually have information. Odongto has declared that he has ABCD. How does the declaration correspond to his earnings? How does it correspond with his tax returns, if he's a businessman? And my view is that this approach, Honorable Betty, will also help us address the issues of witch hunt and speculation, but also mindset among our civil servants. Because unlike other countries, here it is almost a crime for civil servants to engage in wealth creation, if I may say it. Because even if a civil servant has a business entity, he has earned his money, and is able to drive a car. But if he knows the boss is driving a smaller car, he will hide the car and not take it to the what? To office. And this is one of the things I think that is affecting development, because you find that a lot of people who would be doing actually investments are hiding money in square miles of land because they cannot be traced. So this should be able to give people confidence that if you are able to declare a source, you are doing business. There is nothing to hide. But the fact that maybe declarations are made and maybe there is no clear process that follows, people tend to get away with it. And my advice would be that for starting point, Honorable Betty, you need to look at some kind of technology, because the world has moved. There is a lot of technology, including artificial intelligence technology, that can help you have a system that can do a quick, because we declare through the system, but a system that can quickly, using the inbuilt parameters, if Katana has declared, the system that is maybe interlinked with lands or is linked with the government hub, that it is able to quickly do a quick analysis and actually bring you cases that you need to follow up, because then that one takes away the fears of my brother Benjamin, that people will be people are being targeted or what. But if you have a system that can quickly generate cases, that does auto processing, it will help you, because we have people who are very smart, and you also have to up your games in terms of the skills that the inspectors may have. Their ability to interrogate, be able to value. But you need a system, because you have so many declarations every year. The other declarations for another year. So there is no a clear-cut trajectory that you can actually follow someone for the last 10 years to say, if this person has been declaring this and this, progressing, is the business progressing, the source in which is getting money. That will help you to be able to do the work. Finally, there is a lot of citizenship awareness that needs to be done, because the citizens are blind. They follow what I could say moments or news of the day. Until something breaks up, the breaks up, the citizens are what? Are aware. I mean, we passed the budget for Karamoja. The people in Karamoja should have been told from the beginning that you are expecting to receive this number of iron sheets, this number of goats, so that they can also demand from the authorities. So that, and this is the timeline. But because people are also in the dark, there is no citizenship demand for accountability. I want to give you an example. The people I represent for the last 3 years, we come out and read the budget from that has been appropriated to the district. We have gone ahead now when we allocated 1 billion per constituency for the roads.
Mm-hmm.
We went ahead and said we need to know the average cost of a kilometer, of a standard maram per kilometer. We wrote to road fund, and they gave us indicative figures. And as the chairman of the roads committee, when we sat, we said, okay, this is the money. Remove operations. So you are left with, I think, 850. Divide by the average cost per kilometer, which was 17 point something. Then we said, now we must do this number of kilometers. Then we said, now the priority roads are this. From this point, from Chihonda to Chavahaya, this is the 8 kilometers. Times the average, this is what we expect. And we went on radios and told people, and if this money is eaten, please know that we have allocated 180 million for this road. I have a letter here, which I received from 15 chairpersons of one of my wards writing, complaining about the road that has been done, graded, instead of a width of 5 to 6. It is 4. They have measured and they are saying, we know they allocated 234 million, but the work that has been done is shoddy and is poor, and we are asking for accountability. Writing to the town clerk. If the citizens get to know the budget, they get to know the amount of money that has been allocated, themselves will demand, because Betty cannot be everywhere. And so we need support, but we also may need, even if it serves as a deterrent, just indicative, send it out to the local governments, so that even the people who do oversight can have preliminary information, use it, and be able to tell the people that this person who is supposed to be implementing this budget is actually fleecing you at the expense. So there is a lot of engagement, citizens awareness. You may need to look at the technology that you may need to pass, and let us, if we have a budget for these roads, let's have standards. You cannot have, if you have buildings being put up, headquarters of a building, the RGG is building a headquarters. If it is 20 floors, and then you have another agency building another similar one in Kororo or Nakasero, 20 floors, the values, the indicative estimate should be nearly the same. But you'll see when people appear before committees of budget, you see someone demanding 100 and something billion. Then you see another building, 80. A lot of inconsistencies where we can have some standards, average kilometer per road, tarmac road, average kilometer of a primary standard seed school. It is known. These are things that can proactively, mitigate the challenges that RGG is talking about. So I support, and I think we needed to start it. There are agencies that started it. Even the previous workplace where I had, we actually had it. And for me, it will give you enough evidence to deal with cases rather than speculation and even blackmail, where you find someone who has refused, stood their foot that we are not going to award this contract because there is a lot of influence, and then they turn tables on him, and is witch hunted out of and these are very many cases. There are people who have even fled. He leaves the job and goes out of the country because he knows he can actually be finished. Okay. And that is another form of corruption.
Okay. Honorable Betty, good questions coming your way there, but let me broaden this a bit. You earlier talked about the catchment area, and you talked about civil servants, then you talked about the Leadership Code Act, public servants generally. Someone is asking on things to do with recovery. I think this is someone calling herself Anti-Beatrice, that my lay understanding, good morning, Capital Gang. My lay understanding is that this is comparison of non-income with standard of living to identify gaps. In case there is evidence of fraud, will recovery of the loot be part of this process apart from jail? That's what Anti-Beatrice is asking. But it broadened my question, the realm of my question, to even go as far as asking, how are you going to deal with close family members to public servants? And you know what I'm meaning. I may look, and we all know in reality that there are people who will look like they don't earn not even $100 in a month. But when actually they have 10 malls within the business center of Kampala, they can put on a face. They can even wear slippers. I've seen some of them when I travel across the country, and then they are showing me. You see those buildings on William Street, then those buildings on maybe Republic House, the buildings on Mbarara Highway, 5 of them. belongs to that man that you saw there. And the man is in slippers, in an old faded T-shirt. Apparently, the person probably has it in the name of the children, the first, the second wife, then some known, relatives. How are you going to deal with that? And then maybe you need to take that with also, how successful has the leadership code declarations, under the leadership code, the declarations of assets, and from what even Honorable Kateshumba is talking about, you can't follow for 10 years, you can't follow maybe for 5 years. What's their effectiveness?
You see, first of all, the law is right to be there so that everybody is expected to live within the ambits of the law. But of course, there will be people who will live outside. And the good thing is that the framework of the law will be there. But to answer your question, I think the answer really lies in a general public awareness. The general public awareness that corruption hurts them, that they are victims. Council Katanahia said it, and even Honorable Katesh, the campaign name, said it, that the public largely do not relate poor service delivery with corruption. Or to bring it closer home, the person may not realize that when I went to hospital yesterday and there wasn't medicine and my loved one died, it is because my neighbor who works in government and seems to have a lot of money is the one who stole the money for medicine. And therefore the death of my loved one is because of that, my neighbor who stole medicine money and built himself a mall. So that is why, for us, we have stepped up our sensitization function. Once the public relate directly the impact of corruption on themselves and they step up their accountability and their watchdogship. Is that watchdogmanship or watchdogship? Or the watchdogship. Then it will really make sense. It will really help. And like I said, we have stepped up our education advocacy and our advocacy function. And we tell the public, we inform the public that government actually has money. And that money, if it is not enough, they borrow or they get support from development partners. And for instance, government allocates money for purchase of drugs, but that money does not purchase drugs. That is why when you go to hospital, there is no medicine, there are no equipment, because along the way, someone hijacked the money. A few people hijacked the money. So this public watchdogship will be extremely important. I'm telling you, one day it was so bad. We were driving here along Wandegea. There's a jam there. And then one public government officials, one of us who has a lead car, was passing by with his poo, 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 poo. And then people got together and said, Banang, muvira babiba mabati. Muvira babiba mabati.
Oh dear.
And the entire public was together like you people. So if we can bring the public to be the watchdogs of their money, they should know it is their money. Then we have gone a long way in this war against corruption. And She said, Auntie Beatrice,
Yes, Auntie Beatrice.
She asked, was this recovery of the loot be part of the process?
Yeah.
Yes, it is provided for. Once you cannot explain, and Honorable Kate Shumba, it is not that you are out there to get people's money. But I think people should know, one, you cannot fight wars in this business. Family wars or women wars or business wars or job place wars. People can want to use them by reporting people. But people should be, if you are able to explain the source of your wealth, this house, I inherited it from my father, that is proven. This one, I am doing my business, I sell Musoke, I do that, I've paid my taxes. You will be cleared. But the one we are looking for is the one who is using public funds to enrich themselves at the cost of the public. And that is where the one that the lifestyle audit is focusing on. Explain yourself. Explain yourself. So I think that it's very, very important.
Maybe before you get off from that, how much awareness have you engaged in? I would like my people, because Benjamin made that point, and it's a point that we have had discussions on, nationally, in groups for over 10 years now, that corruption in Uganda now, actually, if it is that corruption is an elitist discussion, that if you dare to take corruption discussion to the campaign platform and you are a politician, then don't blame anyone for losing that election, because the people who vote, our people out there, whom you say should know that this health center or drugs were not delivered because of corruption by they actually are part of the people who celebrate the corrupt. That's one. And then there is the issue that Benjamin also touched on earlier, the democratization. May I call it the democratization? For him, he mentioned it as politicking of corruption. But for me, I've decided to call it the democratization of corruption. If Charles Odongtho steals 10 billion today, he will be the darling of Parombo, of Nebi district, of the Alur community, and dare touch him, the president most likely will lose votes among the Alur. And so the president might say, okay, let's first leave him. And there is that temptation. How do you deal with that in this, the awareness?
And I add the related one so that she answers. I have colleagues in Parliament who say that, going down in the constituency and going after civil servants, trying to ask for accountability, they are going to gang against you in 2026.
Yes.
And mobilize money to make sure you are done what?
And remember, they are closer.
You find some colleagues say, I don't want to fight with what? With those people. They are going to do what?
They are going to gang up against us.
And again,
they are closer to the people because they are nearer to them. Proximity. And they have more money and access to it. Those local government leaders, they are the auditors. They are the they are the accounting officers there. They are the ones who deliver the service at the local level. The politician is here, happy in Kampala. They don't know, the MP or minister, they don't know actually their constituency has already been invaded from behind them. So they would rather, let's keep the peace.
The good thing
shut up on corruption
is that the Inspectorate of Government is outside politics, and the courts are also outside politics. And the Inspectorate of Government is the one which implements the leadership code of conduct, which requires people to justify their lifestyles to the public. 2, the war is not a walk in the park. There will be casualties. There will be problems. But the important thing, and I think that some level of awareness has been created among the public in the past 2 years or so. Because for us, or at least for me, I'm more a community-based activist, if you like, from my previous occupation and experiences. That's why we have opened up the Inspectorate of Government to be a more people-oriented or people-friendly institution. Sometimes you hear when we go there, people say, when we used to see the Inspector General of Government, you run to hide, even if you have not done anything. But now, as well as hunting down the corrupt, we are talking more to the people to understand the cost and the impact of corruption. So with this change, and it's not going to happen. Look at Christianity, look at Islam. How long has it been here? 2,000 years, 1,500 years. But still, you haven't got there yet. So it's going to be a long walk. It's going to be a long walk, but it has got to start. And the best way is a mindset change of the population. As long as the population condone and even facilitate, like you said, you go to Nebi and you are a darling because you got a job 2 years ago when you didn't have anything. 2 years later, you are building a church. You are the most important person. You have built a mall. You have built your mother a house. You have built your sister. You have what? You have married a third wife in 2 years. And people think you are smart.
And they will give me a seat in the front.
The neighbor's house,
in church, I must sit in front.
Who worked about 5 years ago, who doesn't have those things because he has no access, or he can't do that. They think he's foolish. Look at your friend. He just got a job 2 years ago. Now he has this. But this one, he doesn't have anything. So people...
He's not hardworking. He's lazy.
He's lazy. He's stupid. He's not smart.
Yeah.
So this mindset, we must all work. And even fora like this one of radio talk shows or Capital Gang is a very, very important mindset. So we've started a campaign, really, of mindset change where people must know that service delivery, the quality of service delivery is directly related to the management of the taxes they pay. And if the service delivery is very poor and some people are obscenely rich, then the equation does not balance and people should begin to wake up.
Okay.
So, like I said, these people who said, you know, it's because they think now they realize it is bad. But more before, they're saying, let them let the people build their houses.
Okay, there are some questions that I want to pick on. One is here from John Bijemano from SETA, and he says, now, Honorable Katesh, I think this is to you here, starting with you, that Charles, there is a worrying trend in which people from NRM are normalizing corruption. They seem to either have given up or they speak as if it is none of their business or none of their making. Everywhere they speak with one voice and agree that corruption has become endemic, but they seem to suggest that it is someone else's business to tackle. Others are now even telling us it is a problem that only Muhoozi Kainerugaba can fix. This is a dangerous trend because if NRM has been in power for 4 decades, and its leaders are saying it is not their problem, then whose problem is it? Honorable Dick Kateshumbwa, you will need to respond to that. Then another person is called who is this? Shafiq. Shafiq says, Honorable Betty Kamya, corruption is not easy to fight. What you see today is because of impunity, and you always go for Mukene people and leave the Emputa. That's what the guy is saying. You will need to respond to that pessimism as well. And then this one is called Godfrey Chakala Mokola. He says public has lost interest in the fight of corruption because of the failure on part of government to take actions against the big fish. It's also related. So, if the big foxes are protected, why would you report a poor teacher who you know is poorly paid and has stolen just a box of chalk? The reason why the public started mob justice on thieves is because they would report them to police, they get arrested, and the next day they are back in the community, so they stopped trusting the police. That is what Godfrey Chakala is saying, Honorable. Another pessimism there. Then another one here is called Sonko Maiko. Sonko Mike.
The governor of Nairobi.
Sonko, that one used to listen to me on another talk show at UBC. He used to like it and would send messages. This one says, "Good morning, gangsters. I am a good fan of Honorable Betty." Honorable, you have there a fan for you.
Kajambo. So
and
cool.
he says, I'm inquiring to know what the IGG office is doing about what is happening in Parliament. Honorable, Council Benjamin earlier referred to it as well. And especially in office of the Commission of Parliament and how it seems to be misusing its powers. This is according to Sonko, and he is from Nkokonjeru, Sonko Michael. Then Sonko, I'll take only one of your questions because there are many others. This seems to be a good topic for many, so we need to really listen to what people are saying. This is also Chakala. We have already picked one of your questions. Then this gentleman, he says he's called Ivan Hollywood. Ivan Hollywood says corruption in Uganda has become healthy for most people and is actually genetic. Wow. And he says, that is to say, it moves in families, corruption is everywhere, just prayers for my country, but no hope to end corruption in Uganda. And he says, I want to thank you for listening from Bududa, Lukonje. Thank you, Ivan, and greet the people of Bududa. From the OPM, we are coming there soon to deliver. Of course, when the rains and the environment is becoming unfriendly. No, don't talk about Mabati. We are supposed to go and also sensitize the people there. The OPM has that mandate to under disaster management. We sensitize the people so that, especially those who stay along the slopes of the mountain, so that they don't fall victims. But that is a very, you are a politician. That's a very tricky thing to deal with because people don't want to live where they have grown up, they have been born. But that is for another day. Let me see. This one is called, this person is called Tom. Tom does not tell us where he's sending a message from, but he says, good morning, gangsters. Good morning, Charles. At least for us, the people of Shema, know how to complain. For us, we know we are elites, of course, people from the municipality. These guys can boast. Then he says, for us, we are informed, but those from remote areas, who is he talking about from the remote areas? Maybe the Katanas from the other part of Shema.
Are you looking at yourself?
Or me from Nebi.
Most probably Porombo.
Yeah, he says for them they are elites, and I think he doesn't have any apology for that. Then let me pick this from, I want to try and balance Uganda. This is from Gulu, and this person is called Bran Ismail. He says, corruption, he also paints a pessimistic picture, Honorable Betty. He says, corruption in Uganda cannot be controlled by IGG simply because the people who are serving in the organs of government have studied it as a course and others have PhDs in it. However much we fight tooth and nail to deal with corruption, it's just wastage of time. But now that the biggest challenge we are facing as the citizen of this nation are lack of drugs in government hospitals, lack of funds in government hospitals, in government schools. In other parts of the country, people are dying of starvation, especially in Karamoja region. This was in the past years, not now. But in political programs, money is always available. And the Parliament of Uganda is, he says Parliament of Uganda, in my view, is now rotten because of corruption. Call me Ismail from Gulu. Ismail, that is your name, so you don't say call me. But also, Ismail, you should use better words. It is inadequate provision of some of these facilities. I know that I travel a lot. Even yesterday, we were in the countryside, and some of these places, the hospitals, they have some of the drugs, but they may not be adequate. I think that is the correct way of naming it. With those, I'm going to go for a break at this point, and then when we come back, I will ask the gangsters here present, the discussants here, Honorable Betty. I'm told actually we need to continue for another few more minutes. So let me start with you, Council Benjamin, and then I will come round to Honorable Betty. But let me start with Council Benjamin and Honorable Kateshumbwa. Benjamin, you are hearing the pessimism being painted by the people. And like Honorable Betty has been laboring to explain, this is a huge mountain to climb to convince people to change that mindset that actually Uganda can fight corruption. Isn't that the biggest problem we have for starters in Uganda? And how do we surmount it?
Well, thank you, Charles. I think there are different aspects to that. The pessimism is a result of a number of factors. And I think one has been largely mentioned, the failure to act against those that have been found culpable, not necessarily by courts of law, but sometimes by parliamentary investigation, parliamentary committees, and others of that nature. You remember, I think it was last year, when a parliamentary commission found that the management of Uganda Airlines had fallen short on so many aspects, but nothing was done about it. I already mentioned the example of one of the ministers that was adversely mentioned and is actually subject of criminal trial for indulging in corruption. He has been retained. So that explains part of the lack of confidence. The other aspect is the polarization in appreciation of public affairs. That as a nation, now we are incapable of looking at things beyond the political shades that we subscribe to. And I think it is largely attributable to the fusion that we have today of the state of Uganda and the leadership of the country. That now, when the Honorable Betty Kamya here is speaking, people don't look at her as the head of some people, it may not be all, as the head of an institution of the state called Inspectorate of Government, but they look at her as a representative of Museveni, because there's a fusion, because maybe of the manner in which the government is run and the overbearing character of the leader that we have that is everywhere. So when they see the IG speak, so those who have no confidence in the person in whose image they see her don't have confidence in the institution, in her, not because they have problems with her character, with her person as an individual, but because of what they think she represents. And so I think as a country we need to invest efforts in building a minimum national consensus on some aspects. And I think corruption is one of those. That when we are fighting corruption, regardless of where I belong, if there is information, my job is to give it to the relevant state agencies. If they act on it, well and good. If they don't, but for me as a citizen who is aggrieved I have done my part, and I can question them after that information, and I say, look, when a call was made for people to provide information in this regard, I provided it, but no action was taken. The other thing that needs to be done, which has largely been talked about, is that the institution must be seen to bite, and not only bite the small ones. Like I saw someone use the example of Mukene and Mputa. Yeah, so I think the people must see firm approach by the inspectorate, because you see but there are limitations, because corruption in Uganda is not just criminal, it has even taken a political dimension, and there are beneficiaries to this problem called corruption politically. One of our colleagues here, the Honorable Kateshumba, mentioned that some members of parliament fear to go against some civil servants because they have money and they can bankroll their opponents in their respective constituencies. That is on a smaller scale, and I agree. On the bigger scale is that you have all these people that are involved in corruption and massive theft and abuse of public resources. When there is any program that involves the president or people that are deemed dear to him, they are the first to subscribe. They are buying T-shirts for the campaign, they are buying posters for the campaign, and they are actively involved. They will be in every picture of the function that takes place at State House and other places where the president will be. So the people that are involved in dealing with that criminality are intimidated, because they see this person is very close to the ones who determine whether we are promoted, whether we are demoted, whether we are arrested, whether we live or die. And so for as long as that is allowed to thrive, that all these people that are involved in that kind of criminality are allowed to enjoy a close relationship with the people that run the country, it's going to be very hard for the Inspectorate of Government to take action against them. And I don't want to generalize, but during campaign time in our respective villages, all these people, and I know that there are some accounting officers that are diligent, there are those that have done business and prospered, but there are those that have prospered as a result of corruption. They are the key financiers of the president's campaigns in our respective villages. And you don't need the statistics. Anecdotal evidence is available. As long as people fear that these are the untouchables, and also when they are adversely mentioned, they don't see the inspectorate acting and other state agencies, then the skepticism will remain there. I think the government has a duty to build confidence through actions, not words. And I think for us who are actors outside the running of government, in the opposition, in the civil society, our duty should be to encourage people not to sit on this information because they have no confidence in the people who are doing the job. Let them bombard them with information. If they fail to act, then that is another discussion altogether. But keeping quiet does not in any way help.
Okay, you talked about corruption and business. Honorable Kateshumba.
Okay.
Honorable Kateshumba, this question you should answer it as you also contribute for your time now. Good morning, gangsters. Fighting corruption is a myth in Uganda. People in government have normalized the vice. In business, you cannot be served when you don't adhere to corruption. This is Moses Oundo Muhedere. He's called Mudehere, sorry. He's making that comment. Honorable Kateshumba, is that true, or his own opinion, which is unfounded?
Some years back, Ugandans who were complaining of having supplied business to South Sudan are not being paid, came up with very huge demands on government to be paid. And I remember there was a team that was put to verify some of the claims. And when you tried to check some of the trucks that took maize, beans, the number plates on the trucks would be traced to border. And clearly you could see that a motorcycle would not carry 1 ton or 2 tons across the border. And so what you're saying is it's true. Of course, if you look at some of the contracts in government and suppliers, some of them are supplier driven, including systems. You come and say, I am going to supply a new system to Capital Radio, and even whether it is needed or not, but because it finds its way in the budget. These are things we deal with on a daily basis. This morning I came from, we've been doing a budget field oversight committee on some of the key projects in Western region. The banana, I don't know if Odong told you, the banana, presidential
initiative on banana something.
The sericulture in Shema, and there's another project in Chiruhura. And when you go to some of these projects, you sometimes think that maybe this country is very rich.
This country is rich, of course.
We are leave it there, because some of your people who commented, they said Parliament is what? Is useless.
The person who mentioned that said Parliament is rotten.
Is rotten.
And that is where you sit.
You know, the people of Uganda are very interesting. They hate Parliament in equal measure as much as they love it. So I have failed to understand where do they fall.
No, they love the money.
No, but maybe they love the representatives of Parliament, but not what they do in their view.
The people accuse Parliament of being big, 500 and something members,
58,
as
57.
if the members in Parliament who are there just woke up one day and put themselves there to start a Parliament. It just amuses me. And then before you know it, we were somewhere in the east. The local people are demanding for the constituency to be split. And then when the numbers
maybe
accumulate,
that is because there is that saying that if you can't beat them, join them.
So
maybe that's following in with that.
I have failed to understand what the people of Uganda need. But Parliament has become a punching bag. Yes, we are part of the system. Yes, we have things that we have fallen short in some areas, but the beating we are receiving sometimes is not commensurate with what
the crime.
Because as I was coming this morning, I had some colleagues I traveled with. One of them showed me about 6 invitations for fundraising between now and May. Churches, mosques, schools, health centers. And the person said, look here, Atesh, I am stressed. I can rarely even sleep. Then you have these ones. Chirocha Bishara Maria, we need you. You are a chief guest. My child is being baptized. I need you to be a guest. I have lost the other day. You did not bury for me. Now, then there is one MP who told me that in their area, the diocese did not fulfill the chero, this money they put. And so the pressure is on MPs that you must now get this quota fulfilled, otherwise we may never consecrate a bishop from your area. So I ask myself, what do people want? Last year, Parliament of Uganda did about 9, if not 10, investigative special reports. Naguruland, NSSF, the Soft Fruit Factory, cooperatives, let me not mention. All of them are on record. What do they want us to do? So, for me...
Follow the law.
We have tried to do our best. We have put up the laws. Where we have fallen short, yes. But this burden is for everyone to carry. Not just to say... Because I also, when I go and I'm battling with my technical people in shame, I ask myself, who is the minister supposed to do this? How can people not report to a health center and people have arrived at 9 in the morning by 8, but you find the doctor is nowhere to be seen up to 11? Am I supposed to be the one to do it? So for me, this fencing the issue around Parliament is too big. We are not the ones who put out. For me, I removed someone. I did not create the constituency for myself.
That's a good one.
So I should not be blamed for being in Parliament.
That's a good one.
And I cannot say by my pronouncement, let the Semweya municipality be removed so that the people of Uganda stop complaining about Parliament.
You will wait for 50 years if you want to do that.
Yes. This thing about NRM party as whatever, it is really ridiculous. We have cities here which are in the opposition for as long as we have lived in these cities. Is there corruption? Are they run by NRM? This one does not have a color. Even in the parties, political parties, we have had the FDC has been split because of money. This is my brother here.
No,
I don't want to trigger him because he has not talked about politics today. Where money is involved, either because of the society pressures or the greed or what, there is all their challenges. So the best thing is sit down and say, how do we tame this vice? It might never be eliminated, but how do we give the minimum expectations to the people of Uganda by playing our roles, the executive, the parliament, the citizens themselves?
Okay.
If I have said that this road from Kabohe to Chuhunda is 10 kilometers, it should be 5 by 7 meters. Standard Maram, it has been awarded 8 million. You, the councillors, the LOC1, the citizens, why should you expect that Bet Kamya is going to monitor for you that road?
Okay.
What is your role? So it is everyone's responsibility. And for me, that if we don't take that approach, even she's not going to, he will produce reports and people will not act.
Okay. Let's take a break. Honorable Betty will wind up on that. On the topic of corruption this morning, and but that will be after the short break that we are going to go into first, and then after Honorable Betty has wound up on that, we will touch on the discussants here will touch on 2 other major events or topics of the week: the issue of taxation, as well as the pronouncement by the Constitutional Court on the AHA law. Let's take that break right now.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. And yes, this is the Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM. And we are here enjoying Star Cafe coffee, and we are discussing the question of corruption, effectiveness of fighting corruption in Uganda. Can the IGG be up to the task? Can Honorable Betty Kamya here and her team stand up to the struggle and to the challenge and ensure that, as Honorable Kateshumba has just said, that corruption may not be removed completely from the country, but that it can be reduced, and can the IGG and the team reduce on that? We have Honorable, I think this is a blessing, Council Benjamin. I keep referring to you as Honorable, and so you need to pick You need to pick an idea from that slip of tongue.
It's on account of the company I'm keeping this morning.
It's a prophecy.
You can give him a flag. We will discuss that flag later. But yes, under Council Benjamin Katana, National Treasurer of the National Unity Platform, is a lawyer and an advocate, and he defends the suspected wrongdoers of NOP when they are needed in court.
Even you, if you're suspected and you require my services.
Honorable Betty, I need us now to wind up on this topic in 2 minutes, and then we touch on the other topics of the week that we are going to be discussing here as well.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank those people that have phoned in, sent messages, and are still, many more would have wanted to do so or have done so, but we can't respond to all of them. And I notice that there's a lot of disillusionment among the people on whether corruption can be dealt with under the current circumstances. It is sad, but it is there. And my answer is, we do not have a choice but to fight corruption. We must fight it, because if we don't fight it, it continues to harm us. It only harms us. So we don't have a choice but to fight it. And like my colleagues on the panel have said, how do we fight it? There are many ways of fighting it. Everybody must do their job. Courts are there. In the local government, there are many official offices, RDCs, DSOs, ISOs, RISOs, chairpersons of LC1. I mean, all those are out there to support the public to get value for money. The most important thing is that the public get value for their money. Up here, there is Parliament, the main watchdog. There's the Inspectorate of Government, there are courts. Everybody can play a role. But for me, what I think is most important right now is a critical mass of the public to talk about corruption, because everybody must do their job, their role. Look at what's happening. There are campaigns in schools, and who pays the money to their kid to go and buy sweets for the children? Parent. That parent is also here complaining that corruption will never go away. Nobody can fight corruption. But you gave your child money to go to school and buy sweets. You buy exams for your children. You go to NASA and buy, even that one who bought a certificate from NASA is also complaining that corruption is a lot. So I think it is Katesh who said that corruption, so even in it's not just in government, it's also in the private sector. The HR person in private sector is also demanding sex and money to give out job. The procurement person in private sector also overloads prices and buys under substandard goods. So this corruption, don't think that it's only in the public. It is almost a society thing which we must address and change society. My job as the Inspector General of Government is to ensure that in the public sector there is strict adherence to the rule of law, and therefore if there's strict adherence to the rule of law, there will be no abuse of office, there will be no corruption, there will be no ombuds issues. And we have the instruments of authority. I have the legislation, I have the administrative functions, but we must work with the public and other people to give us information. And I assure you that the lifestyle audit, as I conclude, for those who are talking about Mukene and Mputa, let me explain this in 1 minute. The reason we get Mukene, because Mukene are the ones who are used, and we get, when you're looking for evidence, we found Mputa gave directives, verbal, I want to go to Karamoja, so prepare for me. And Mukene goes and writes a loose minute with the hands of Mukene. And Mukene writes the check, and Mukene goes and withdraws the money. And you look for the signature of the big fish, it is not anywhere. So now we are saying lifestyle audit will help us to shift the burden on the person who has acquired illicit wealth to explain how they acquired that wealth. Because when you look here for their footprints in how they got that money, it is very difficult to get. So I think that the lifestyle audit, like I said at the beginning, is one tool that is used throughout the world to shift the burden on the person to explain
the beneficiaries.
Yes, to explain their lifestyle,
the real beneficiary,
which is not commensurate with their known sources of income. So
okay.
I urge you to support this and to get involved in sharing information with the Inspectorate of Government.
Thank you very much. There are so many persons who have sent messages, and I was actually looking for one, at least a lady, to balance the so many messages from the men. There is one from Helen Ninsima from Bambarara, Nyamitanga area. She says our rulers should know, and I think they know that if the people are relentlessly oppressed, there comes a time when they might not wish that to continue. She describes the current corruption in Uganda as oppressive and is a tool of oppression and robbery. That's which is not good and that must be tackled. Thanks a lot, Helen Insima. We will now leave that topic. Of course, it continues online and continue sending in messages to the online platforms and forums that we have given you, especially the WhatsApp platform 0752 345 913, so that at an appropriate time, another time, these discussions can always come up. Let's touch on the other topic. The other topic of the week is. That is under discussion is budget proposals. And Honorable Katesh, I need you to just weigh in on this to start us off, and we just make some few comments and for the morning. The question is it wise to add more taxes on land sales for the ordinary Ugandan, the owner of land? What is it that you're doing in Parliament with some of these recent new tax proposals, if I may call it? It's causing some itches here and there, and especially the ordinary person is crying foul for this proposal. What's going on in Parliament?
First of all, we are in the process of examining tax bills and also the budget. The government has tabled a budget of about 58 trillion. And of course, people must understand that the budget is funded. It has two sides. You have the income, which is the revenue, and then you have the expenditure. Now, the income side, which is revenue, is composed of domestic revenue, which comes from taxes and non-tax revenue, domestic taxes like indirect and indirect, and then of course plus grants and borrowings. The budget currently, as it is estimated for next year, out of the 58 trillion, about 31 is expected to be domestic revenue. So you have about the remaining 27 trillion expected to be borrowed or to be, from other sources other than domestic revenue. And out of the revenue we collect, I think about 25%, 25 trillion will go for things like loan repayments, basically commitments So the situation that government is in is how do we then raise more revenue to fund our budget? Because if you have 31 out of 58, you already have a debt to GDP ratio that is gone high. How do you mobilize revenue? So government has come up with measures, and these measures have been tabled before Parliament. They are bills. Starting this coming week, we shall be having public hearings. We've invited the public, our Committee of Finance, to listen to the views of the public. So all this debate, anyone is welcome to come to Parliament and submit his views about the measures. Okay? And once we have listened to the public, then we will listen to the policy, the Minister of Finance and URA, the justification for the measures that have been proposed. For us as legislators, and me in particular, when we are looking at any tax, we have to look at four things. Number one, what is the impact on the economic growth? If you are introducing a tax on an item, what impact does it have? Does it have a positive impact on economic growth? Will it result, because the economy is the GDP is expected to grow at 6%, and the president has been pushing for a double-digit growth, 10%, which we actually need. So if we introduce a tax, will it lead to more growth? And this is why we have demanded the ministry to disaggregate figures of economic growth so that we know which sectors are growing, which subsectors are growing, and where do we need to add more pasture to feed the cow to give us more milk. Okay, so that's the first consideration. The second one would be, what is the amount? How much do we want to collect? For example, fuel is a very easy catch point. Given the big deficit that we have in revenue, I think government is looking at fuel as one of the areas where you can have a big chunk of tax to cover the budget deficit that you have. But so if you introduce a tax that is going to create a lot of noise, but the minimal, very minimal, do you really need to go through all this? So we'll look at that. The third consideration for me is the cost of correction. Because globally, the standard average is that the tax should not cost you 3%, more than 3% to correct it. So if, for example, you have to incur $7 to correct $10, it does not make sense. So we have to look at how easy is this tax to collect effectively. Is it within the threshold? And finally, because we represent the people, we also have to look at the social sensitivity. So if you are introducing this tax, what is the social impact? So we will be able to examine these measures and test them against some of the ideas that I've mentioned. Plus also, if you look at the tax, we all want development. And what are the factors of development? Looking for production. Do you target to tax capital that I have saved, that I want to invest and produce? Or you wait for me to invest, then the proceeds you tax. So we have to look at some of those principles. That Odongso is the person in the ministry, he has saved his money, he wants to invest, employ people, they can pay tax, he gets a profit, you tax them. So do you tax the money that he's going to invest so that you curtail him and he has to go to the bank, or you wait for him to invest? Those are some of the things. And finally, on this matter, for me as a tax, tax professional, we have about less than 4 million people in the tax register in this country, out of 40 million or so Ugandans that are carrying the burden, including companies and individuals. A country like Uganda has to lessen its appetite towards direct taxation, because we do not have big corporations that have global presence that can bring in money. In this studio, we all have foreign imported phones. Samsung, Katana, I don't know what he has, a Nokia, you have maybe an iPhone.
I have an
using
iPhone here.
Every time you buy it,
which I was given for free.
Okay.
As a birthday gift.
Did you declare it to the IGG?
For a birthday.
Okay.
I got it before I became a public servant.
The first candidate of lifestyle, the kind of friends that you have.
I got it before I became a public servant.
Okay. So Samsung is a South Korean company. Okay. And you've reported yourself. Now, all the money that it makes globally, from your sales, IGGs, the phone, everyone, the government of Korea earns income. MTN, which is the South African based, the income it earns, South Africa gets. So the global presence of multinationals brings in money to the economy. Uganda does not have that opportunity. If you look for Ugandan enterprises that have global regional presence, other than a few like Cafe Javas in Nairobi and a few others, we don't have. The labor remuneration here is not as big to attract huge dividends and payments. So the best approach we should be looking at is how do we widen the net for indirect taxation? That as people, we invest in production, as a country, people get money, like through PDM. If you are people in Parombo, make money, they will go and drink. And when they drink, money comes in. So these are some of the things we need to look at and say, which approach do we take that can raise a lot of money. So, but we will have an opportunity to discuss these and examine them on their merits, and maybe we'll have another debate maybe on this platform. Okay,
Honorable Betty, when people talk taxes, additional taxation and all that, the burden that is cried about so much is usually overtaxing, the same people. And Honorable Kateshumba has made reference to the 40 or less than 4 million out of, and that would actually be less than 10% of the total population of Uganda. What's your take about growing the tax base and whether the former employers of Kateshumba are doing the best, and not just them, but even because in terms of policies, for them they enforce, right? They implement the policies by Ministry of Finance and Parliament and all that. What's your take about that?
One, like Honorable Katesh says, the purpose of expanding the tax base is okay. But the problem is that even what we have now needs to be seriously examined and evaluated. We have so many loopholes and issues that can be revisited. We have tax exemptions to non-deserving people. These days they are called Gambanogu. If you have Gambanogu, you can get a tax exemption when you don't even deserve that. There are people who get tax holidays. These days they are called the Gambanogus. The tax evasions, the corruption in tax collection. You find goods that are supposed to be consumed in Uganda, but they are consigned to another country, like transit goods. And we are investigating all this. But they are not transit. They are offloaded here in Uganda. And they are sold, and they don't pay taxes. So when we go to the border posts where they're supposed to have passed, we find they didn't even pass there. Sometimes they pass the border. They don't pass, but they register somehow.
Their footmarks are like.
But when you go to the other side of
they're
the
like
country,
of that thing of the lion was sick.
Exactly.
Where the footmarks all go inside,
but they don't
come back.
So there are so many loopholes that you need to deal with first before you overload the poor Ugandan taxpayer who does not even get the services they deserve. Let us first get the value for money of the taxes that we pay.
But where should we start that from?
Then there is the lavish consumption.
Yeah.
Everybody in Uganda here drives a top of the range vehicle in Uganda. The travel, when I was in the parliament, the 8th parliament, Speaker sent me in a delegation to visit UNA, which is an every year event.
The Uganda North American Association Convention.
And what I saw in UNA, I said I will never go back on official. You can go to join the Ugandans to enjoy, because originally it was for Ugandans in America who can't come home, find a weekend where they can all come together as Ugandans. You find yourselves speaking to yourselves, the people who left Kampala, the MPs, the bankers, that on taxpayers' money, you go in a room which was arranged for 100 people, and except for the organizers of UNA, the rest are you people who left Uganda, traveled business class, got big per diems to go to UNA, and you talk to yourselves.
So no output.
After UNA, then there's another one in the UK.
No effect.
Which is called the conventions. Must do the what? Something. And we have been, and we spend about 5, because people go there to make presentations. The housing industry, the banking industry, the tax, whatever.
Remittances and all that.
From Uganda to talk to Ugandans whom they went with on the same plane. Sometimes you go on a plane, and you find yourselves, all of you in business class are Ugandans traveling to Hong Kong, to government people. So we need to audit, and I'm glad that Parliament is going to have this discussion.
Okay.
We need to audit the kind level of consumption which is so really overburdening the taxpayer. And as I finish, the cost of loans. So we borrow money. Almost when I was in the cabinet and in Parliament, almost every month I think we pass a loan. And the loans end up in white elephant projects, and most of the money is stolen in corruption. Anyway, 50% in procurement.
Sometimes we even borrow when we are not yet ready, and then they start charging us the interest already.
The loan is about 15 trillion. How much are you paying back on loans?
I wish we had more time for this. Honorable Betty, unfortunately,
so please,
I have to interrupt you.
Before we have run taxes, let us audit the value for money for the current tax rate.
It's a very interesting comments you make there, and I wish I will report to Oskar that this is something that you need to discuss again. It goes back to the issue of corruption and the taxes and corruption and value for money. Yes, but Council Katana, in 2 minutes, end us. We are now coming to the end, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Issue of taxes, tax base,
thank you,
value
Charles.
For money and all that.
I think the starting point is that tax is an inconvenience that must only be born out of necessity. And the necessity being,
I like that,
the need service, common good, services, and what have you. But what are we witnessing is that you are taxing people, whether it is overtaxing or even not overtaxing, but you are facilitating luxurious lifestyles, starting from the president, members of the first family, and the political elite. Everyone in this town now has a motorcade, and it is being financed by the taxpayer. But if you're squeezing me to pay tax, but every time I'm going to my village in Buyanja, I have to park the car in Ruentuha and get a border. If I'm going to Bulindo, like some people who stay in Bulindo, there is no road beyond Nigeria. What is the motivation?
Where has the road gone?
Where is the motivation for bearing this burden of paying tax? I think that is the foundation. The foundational point is that people must be able to see that the taxes they are paying, there is value for money.
Okay.
Number 2 is that we are paying taxes over and above the black tax. That because government has not provided sufficient access to public services like good schools, like health care, you're paying school fees for relatives which cannot be included in your tax returns. you are paying medical bills for relatives, which you cannot include in your tax returns. And then in addition to that, you are required to pay taxes. Then there is extortion. For people who are doing business, left, right, and center, every agency of government that a person goes to, there is extortion. When you are filing returns, you are not going to say that I paid the bribe of this much to this person. For them, they are going to look at your figures of what you used to buy, and what have you. The other aspect that needs to be looked at is how to minimize the cost of doing business. In addition to, and I know taxes are normally about profits, but there are other barriers that need to be addressed, and I think where we are lagging behind. For example, in transportation, if we can fix the railway network from Mombasa, if I'm bringing cargo to Uganda, and things of that nature. But over and above is the wastage that has been talked about, and the lack of prioritization by government, that you are collecting money from Ugandans to buy tear gas, to tear gas them, not for a just cause.
Isn't that for enforcement?
Yes, that's why I said not
and
for a just
isn't
cause.
Isn't it used when
that's
necessary?
That's why I said not for just cause. So that the taxes are not being used very well to serve this common good and serve the people, but facilitate wastage of actors who are privileged to be in positions of what would be responsibility, but they are just positions of privilege.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jotham Taremwa is listening out there, and he sent a message that I want to thank the gangsters, the discussants, and particularly the moderator for this morning. So thank you, Jotham. And thank you very much, Honorable Olive, Honorable Kateshombwa, Council Benjamin Katana. Thanks so much to you out there, the listener and viewer or online of the Capital Gang. This is Capital FM on 91.3, and this is the Capital Gang. Good
we know
weekend.
That you got big